My name is Dela. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
My name is Charlie Jayx. I'm based here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
91.7 FM WMSC Milwaukee, Friday night after hours. This is a brand new edition of the weekly EDM show Streamline.
My name is Sir Mel Hammond. I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
When it comes to music, when I was younger, I was always interested in music that had soul. So, you know, everything from Bob Marley to some old, you know, R&B like Belle Biv DeVoe.
I grew up with 70s music, funk, disco, the original house wave, original hip-hop wave.
Growing up in the late 70s and early 80s was the new wave or new romantic genre, and that led way into discovering old school music.
And then when I got a little bit older, I started really getting into kind of the synth sound of the 80s and early 90s with bands like Depeche Mode.
I'm really influenced by a lot of the 70s funk, 80s electronica, a lot of disco from the 70s, as well as disco funk from the 80s.
That gave way into what was called the Summer of '88, artists such as Inner City and Mars with Pump Up the Volume.
The difference between underground music and popular music comes from major record labels choosing and picking what gets the push and what doesn't.
To me, underground music these days is any composition that was created with creative freedom. There was no target audience or no intent for a target audience. There was no market research. It was made by you, not by anyone else.
With mainstream music, people tend to get amped when they hear a tune that they love and they know and they you know, that they look forward to hearing when they go out to hear, you know, a certain artist play. With underground, specifically underground dance music, people get amped when they hear something they've never ever heard before.
At this point, the only thing I feel differentiates pop music from underground music is a lazy publicist. Every genre has a rudiment and a tonal structure that is indicative of said genre.
Differences between them depend on how fast or slow they are, whether they have vocals or if they're instrumentals.
When you hear boom boom cat, boom ba boom cat, you know it's hip hop. When you hear a 4-on-the-floor kick drum, that's boom 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 boom. That is indicative of house music.
One of the things that kind of is the funniest thing about our style of music is that everybody likes to sub-genre everything. So you have all of these wonky names these days.
Standard house,
Drum and bass,
Jungle,
dubstep,
tech house,
breaks,
progressive house,
techno,
deep house, and so on.
We have so many different subgenres now that it would take eons for me to explain and describe each individual one to you. Music production is defined by making something from nothing.
The things that kind of makes it different than any other style of music out there is that for the most part it is one individual and their studio. Sometimes obviously there's 1 or 2 or 3 collaborations on a given record, but with basically computer-based music, you have the ability to make music very fast.
When MIDI was implemented, we all knew that there was something happening because we could do it ourselves. You know, we could take what we heard and emulate it. And so what we did was, the moment we were able to sequence some drums and sync that up with something else that played a bass line, or maybe a sample of something else, our voices even.
Most producers in this style of music are putting out records, you know, once every month, once every 3 months, that kind of a thing. It's not like a rock band where you kind of have to wait for the rest of the year before you hear something.
With newer technology, our palette is more readily available. Our palette being our sounds, sound sources, different instruments, whether they be electronic or natural, acoustic.
Back when I started the radio show here, I did not have a car, and I was taking either the city bus halfway across town. It's a lot easier to transport a bag or a case of CDs than it is a couple crates of vinyl.
I do have quite a bit of vinyl. Actually, I only really keep in my studio the gems that I you know will always cherish. So I really only have about 100 in here, but I do have about probably another 100 in the basement, and I just gave away probably another 200 to 300 vinyl records.
20 to 30,000 records. I have a storage space here, actually in the building 1015 North Halsted, where the term house music came from.
Well, when I got into mixing, I started on vinyl, and then I switched to CDs very early, and traditionalists kind of cried foul.
Most of my music is digital now because in 2008 is when I switched from being a vinyl DJ to a digital DJ.
I was now mixing with MP3s on a notebook computer, mixing programs like Tractor and Virtual DJ, and once again they cried foul, saying I was non-traditional, and now most of them are doing the same thing. So I'm just waiting for the next thing to come along so it can happen all over again.
Process of spinning records, it's actually quite simple, but can be quite difficult. In the most basic sense, you have one turntable on one side, another on the other, each of which have pitch controls that adjust the speed of the record. The idea is to try to mix in the second record at the same BPM or beat per minute as the first, to give it the impression that it's a seamless, you know, a non-stop kind of mix, and you do that with the use of a mixer.
Some DJs don't feel the need or have actually the audience where they have to have seamless transitions from one song to another. Other DJs have that audience where that is expected.
How does one blend into the other? How well are you working the mixer in order to make it sound as seamless as possible? And at the same time, when you are playing for a crowd, are you playing the right music for the right time, the right people, the right place, and so on?
A DJ's job, really honestly, is to entertain everyone in the room at some point in time. You can't, of course, please everyone all the time, but I feel as though if in 20 minutes you haven't entertained everyone in the room, then you don't need to have the job.